What's up, everybody? It's me, E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Alright, let's jump right into a quick intro about the movie. When Rocket's tragic past catches up with him, the Guardians of the Galaxy have to race against time to save his life before it's too late. Okay, enough of that, let's get right into the good. Just as advertised, this movie goes straight for the feels in this final chapter. Writer-director James Gunn accomplished his goal of telling a heartwarming story. The writing for Rocket's story is especially effective in evoking a lot of empathy for the character overall. The past movies hinted that he had a terrible past, but Volume 3 made us face those horrible events head on. My favorite part was probably learning how Rocket got his name and discovering what has always internally driven his character. It definitely made me appreciate and look back at the previous movies with a little bit more reverence, and I kind of look at Rocket in a whole new light. So if you didn't care that much about Rocket before, the plot of this movie is definitely going to change your mind. Now, the emotional beats don't just end with Rocket. I think that James Gunn took a lot of care and attention and detail and try and elevate all the other characters as well. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody got a tearjerker kind of moment, but they did get a meaningful level of growth and development. So, for example, Drax's story comes perfectly full circle given how James Gunn decided to cap his story off. As a parent, Drax's ending resonated a lot with me, probably the most out of all the other characters. Now, I think Dave Bautista's performance probably showed more sides to his character than most would expect. As for other performances, I thought that Chukwudi Iwuji played a fine villain as the High Evolutionary. He was a bit eccentric at times, but you could tell that his stage play experience as an actor was on full display in some of the scenes. I think it only elevated his character's God complex, but in a more positive way. From a visual standpoint, I thought Volume 3 was pretty captivating. I mean, like, the production design and the vibrant colors were pretty cool to watch. The High Evolutionary ship, for example, was really intriguing given its unique design. Some of the aliens also looked really extraordinary. I thought the visual effects seemed very crisp and the cinematography in the movie was on point. I loved how we had some shots that immediately came off as an homage to movies like Alien, Star Wars, and dare I even say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I should also mention that the cinematography helped a lot with the action scenes. James Gunn had a handful of fight scenes in the movie, but the one that stood out above everything else was definitely the hallway scene, and you'll know it when you see it. That was a thing of beauty and easily one of the best action sequences in the MCU. All right, let's jump right into the bad. Without question, no doubt in my mind, my biggest turnoff in this movie was the depiction of Adam Warlock played by Will Poulter. While I perfectly understood why and how his character was meant to be played, I simply was not a fan of this particular interpretation of the character. I did enjoy his action scenes, but the character's personality and his demeanor, it just didn't work for me. As a comic fan, I did have loose expectations for his character, who, usually is a very stoic-like character. But I also understand that the MCU is not in the business of giving direct comic adaptations. So with that said, there was nothing compelling about Adam Warlock that made me want to see more of this character. Now, it is possible that, let's say, if you're part of the general audience, you've never picked up a comic book, you don't even know who Adam Warlock is, maybe some people out there are going to be like, okay, I like this, but for me, I don't think this character added anything to this movie in a meaningful way, and it was more of a gimmick and a joke than it was like an actual functioning cog. Now, another thing that I had an issue with is kind of something that Guardians of the Galaxy is known for. If you've watched these movies, then you know that the soundtrack is usually a really strong element to these movies. In my opinion, Volume 1 of Guardians of the Galaxy, they nailed it when it came to the song selection and the song placement. I thought it was perfect in the first Guardians movie. In this one, however, not so much. At times, the songs were overbearing, which in itself isn't a major issue. However, the loud songs didn't even feel like they would match some of the scenes that they were paired with. It became a bit of a distraction rather than a supplement for the scenes. Some of the songs I did personally love and enjoy, but the placement of them didn't really work with whatever was going on in the story or in the scene at that time. I mean, think of it like this, imagine yourself getting ready to go to the gym, you trying to get hype, you trying to get psyched, you about to get a good pump, in the gym and all that. And then all of a sudden, through your headphones, some R&B slow jam starts playing. It just doesn't match. It doesn't vibe very well. And that doesn't mean that you hate the song. It's just that this is not a good mix. Ultimately, I think the soundtrack is going to depend on everyone's individual personal taste. I still think that is a miss because I don't think somebody should have to be a fan of the music in order for them to actually match and understand the scene. I mean, for example, if you're not a fan of opera music, that doesn't mean that if you go into a movie and they play opera music that all of a sudden you're going to be turned off. You can go into a film, not be a fan of the genre of the music, and still understand oh man, when they play this opera music, when this hero walks into the door, now I get this sense of grandeur. Now I get this sense of this is an important person. It can still, communicate certain messages, but I think it was all just a miss in Volume 3. It felt again, James Gunn just played his own personal music. And again, even if you cool with that, that's fine. But I just don't think it worked for the film. Now, when it comes to the story, I will say that I think overall it was pretty good. But there were areas in the plot that makes you kind of feel that 2.5 hour runtime. I think there was definitely some fat that could have been trimmed out of this movie just to make the story a little bit leaner. One thing that could have been trimmed out would be the back and forth between Peter and Gamora. Ever since Avengers Endgame, which I'm sure a lot of people saw, the Peter and Gamora angle was already displayed. Then we got more of that in Thor Love and Thunder. Then we got more of that in the Disney Plus holiday special where it was mentioned again. Then, of course, we get to Volume 3, and that's where one too many instances where they had the same beats being addressed about their non-existent relationship. In other words, it just got really repetitive and redundant. And I'm just saying, I get the jokes. I get what they were going for. But some of that stuff, y'all could have taken that out. Anyway, let's get on to the reason. Guardians of the Galaxy was a fitting and emotional ending for a trilogy that delivered a satisfying story for its beloved characters. James Gunn's impression is all over this movie. And this is probably the most James Gunniest movie that there ever could be. You can tell that he really cares about his characters, even to the point where he'll stretch out their stories a little bit more than needed. I think this film works better as an ending of a trilogy rather than a standalone film. As a standalone, the stakes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 don't really feel that high, and the payoff with the characters didn't carry enough impact. However, as a closer to a trilogy, this film gets the job done. So when it comes to the rating for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I've got to give it a 7.5 out of 10. If I had to rank all of the Guardian movies in the trilogy, I would probably say that Volume 1 still is the best one out of all of them. Then I would have Volume 3 coming in, and then I would probably end it off with Volume 2 because that just was kind of a miss in my opinion. Now, overall, I will say that Volume 3 does a pretty good job of keeping the consistency in terms of, holding James Gunn's vision and his voice. So if you really enjoy James Gunn's, material, you're going to have a really good time with Volume 3. I do believe that this movie is worth watching in theaters, especially if you enjoy these characters. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a must watch, but I would say look, if you love the trailers, if you love this franchise and you feel like it's a must watch, go see it. If you feel like maybe this is a matinee $5 Tuesday, go see it that way. If you think man, maybe I'll wait till Disney Plus, that's also okay. And if you want to skip it, well,
Now, I will say that there are 2 post-credit scenes at the end. Personally, I don't think that they were all that great. There was nothing about the post-credit scenes that had me going like, oh man, can't wait to see more. But, they're there. So feel free to stay for them if you want to, but I would not say that it's a must, especially if you got to go to the restroom. Anyway, that's all I have for today. If and when you do go see Volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy, come on back to this video and let me know what did you think about it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss out the next time I drop a video. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.